Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for the NIH Director's New Innovator Award Q&A webinar. We're happy to have you here. Just for your information, we ask that you submit your questions through the Q&A box. I believe it's on your panel or your more options, if you can select that and actually use the Q&A box rather than the chat for your questions. That helps us sort through them a bit easier. However, if you do have any difficulties, you can contact us through the chat and we will try to monitor that and assist you. We do ask that for your questions that you keep things rather general. Don't get into too much specifics. So for instance, if you have a scientific question about your proposal, if it's specifics about how to format that, we would ask that you email us instead so that we can answer that privately and more in depth. You can email us at newinnovatorowards@mail.nih.gov and we will get back to you. And this is the slide that I should have pushed before. So please, once again, submit your questions in the Q&A box. For additional help, please email us. And you can also go to our website. We have a lot of great tools and resources available to you there. Our website is at commonfund.nih.gov/newinnovator. And if you need more assistance, we do have an application and award guide available on that website that walks you through the application process, and it includes example applications. Please note that these examples are older, so they may not conform to current funding opportunity announcement requirements. So please take that in mind and be sure to follow the instructions in the FOA rather than what you see on the example application. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Trish.
Thanks, Becky. You can hear me okay, yeah?
All good.
Okay, great. So first I want to introduce some of our panelists today. I'm Trish Lebowski. I'm the program officer for the DP2s, the New Innovator Awards. I'm also a program leader in the office that runs the NIH Common Fund. I'll tell you a little bit about the Common Fund in a minute. And, we work on many other programs as well as this. So Ravi Basavappa is here with us today. He has been the leader of this program since its inception, so we all lean to him for his wisdom in this area, and probably I will, during the Q&A, turn to him and say, Ravi, can you answer that? A couple times. You'll see evidence of his wisdom. Becky, who introduced us, is the program officer for the Early Independence Award. She's also in our office. Ellie Mercia is in our office again, and she's a program specialist that helps us keep going in the right direction and on time. We also have with us Gene Garcia, who's, can't see his picture now, but he is one of the branch chiefs at the Center for Scientific Review. He's running the New Innovator Review, and he will give you all kinds of important pointers on that process. And then finally, I think Tony is going to be joining us later, perhaps. If not, that's okay, but he may be joining us. He is from NIAMS, National Institute of Arthritis and Musculoskeletal Skin Diseases, and he's a member of our Trans NIH working group. So on the next slide, I want to tell you just a little bit about the NIH Common Fund. This award program is funded through that primarily, and it's an area of science within the Office of the Director at NIH, and it's a specific set aside for goal-driven, transformative, trans-NIH research. So here's the list, which I don't expect you to read, of a number of different programs that are currently ongoing, and you can kind of get an idea of how many different areas of science we touch on. And one of the main reasons to show you this if you click ahead, is that some of these will have incredibly important resources, perhaps for your research. So sometimes there are active FOAs, but even more importantly, you can have access to perhaps high-end instrumentation, databases, reagents, all kinds of things through this group of awards. For example, knockout mouse phenotyping. Type in your favorite gene and see if there's a knockout available and see if it's been phenotyped yet by this group. So you can imagine if you go through all of these you really can find some interesting stuff there. Someday when you have a free hour or 5, you might take a look. On the next slide, though, we're going to talk today about the high-risk, high-reward research program here on the left, and specifically the second bullet down, the new Innovator Award, or the Dp2s. So on the next slide, this is part, again, of the high-risk, high-reward HRHR research program. There are 4 components to this, DP1, 2, 4, and 5. Don't ask about 3, we won't tell you. But DP2 is what we're here to talk about today, the new innovators. But all of these awards are designed to support really outstanding scientists at multiple different career stages, and the research is intended, it must be high risk and high impact research. So on the next slide, I think these are just the captions below. We do release new funding opportunities for each of these 4 every year. And that happens usually in the spring that they're published, and they're usually due in the late summer or early fall. And there's not a whole lot of changes between one year and the next, although there might be some. So it's important to read the current funding opportunity announcement, and you should read it closely for policy and directions. But it's driven every year by a new FOA, which means there are no resubmissions. It's a new round every year. So on the next slide, I want to remind you that these must be high risk and high impact ideas, all of them, whether it's the Pioneer Award, New Innovators, Transformative Research, or Early Independence. It's intended specifically for high risk and high impact scientific ideas. On the next slide, none of these require vast amounts of preliminary data. And you're probably used to that if you're thinking, or you have read, maybe your mentor's R01s or something like that. Usually there's a whole section of preliminary data. None of these require that. We also don't require a detailed experimental plan. We'll get into that a little bit more. You have to convince the reviewers that you know what you're doing and you have a plan, but it doesn't have to be detailed in the same way that you would for, say, an R01. On the next slide, because it's the Common Fund, and we're not specific to any one area of NIH science. We're not disease focused or organ focused or anything like that. All science that's within the mission area is welcome. Behavioral, social, I mean, you can read it there. All of these things, it could be clinical research, it can be basic research, and we are not biased toward one area or another. So on the next slide, this is very important. We encourage applications from investigators from diverse backgrounds, with diverse research experience, and from any eligible institution, the full spectrum. So obviously, the institution where you're at, you have to have the facilities that will support your science, but we really would like to see applications from all across the board. Okay, next slide. This is our Trans NIH working group that I mentioned earlier. Again, Ravi Basavappa is our fearless leader, and the chair of the working group is Jim Anderson, who is also the leader of our division. But you can see, just looking at all the acronyms after everyone's names, that we really represent a huge swath of the NIH. And these people are paying attention to the point where they're helping with review, programmatic review, they're helping with all kinds of things after awards are made. So it's a very high priority for the NIH overall. And the next slide. So I'm going to talk, though, about the DP2, or the New Innovator Award. This was the second award in the HRHR portfolio, started quite a while ago, 2007. And the goal here is to support unusually creative early stage investigators. Now, what does early stage investigator mean? You must be within 10 years of your terminal PhD or doctoral degree or clinical training. So if you're 11 years out, that could be a problem. So you go into ERA Commons and put in your information, and it'll tell you if you're an ESI or not. If you have 2 PhDs, you go with the most recent one. The other criteria is that you can't yet have received a substantial NIH grant. We usually say an R01, but there are a number of different grant mechanisms that can break your ESI or early stage investigator status. And so you can go Google ESI, NIH, and you can go to the policy page, and you will see the awards that will break that ESI status. You have to commit 25% of your research effort to the award. And one thing that's really important, I think, is we're very flexible about budget. It's a flat budget of approximately $300,000 a year plus indirects. You should work with your budget office at your institution to make sure the budget is appropriately fashioned, but that they include indirect costs. These are dispersed in 2 separate segments. The first segment is the first 3 years, so $900,000, and the second one, the last 2 years. But we're very flexible within that. And again, it is a Dp2 award. So on the next slide, oops. So this is a little bit more nitty gritty. You should read the FOA, okay? The FOA will tell you all kinds of details that we don't have time to go over in this hour and a half. But I want to emphasize that this is different. This is different than an R01, and you're going to have mentors that are used to R01s. So they're going to think that there's something weird about your application when you ask them to read it, but it's different, and you have to do it this way. There's no specific aims page, okay? It's a research essay. 10 pages. This is the major part of the application. We'll get into the structure in a minute. The bio sketch, only yours, nobody else's. This is as close to a person-centric award as NIH will make. So only yours, no collaborators, no letters of support. Someone's going to make an antibody for you, whatever. Nope, no letters from them, just yours. You don't have a separate section for a bibliography and references. It's going to fit within your 10 pages. You can use a smaller font for this, but be reasonable. The budget, I'll go through in a minute. It's very minor details. You don't include anything about equipment, no letters of support, no research sharing plan. However, if an award is made, you will need to produce that information as just-in-time information. You can deal with that later, right? There is a facilities section, but it's only 1 page, so very short and tailored to the application. Other components, if it's appropriate, you need to include it, and they're listed there. Okay, on the next page. So this is the structure of the essay, okay? It's bulleted out exactly what the following headings should be. And we're not going to tell you how long each one is. This is really up to you to decide. The project science areas, we have a code for the different areas of science that your application is focused, right? And you need to decide that. We can't advise you in that area. That is for you to decide. That information will only be used for review and not for making any funding decisions. So, but think about that carefully because it will help. Jim will talk about this more later. It will help with assigning reviewers. So the next part of the essay is the project description. So you're going to tell the reviewers how important this is. You're going to tell them sort of an overall what you're going to do. Remember, you don't need any preliminary data, but you can include it. And how much you include is up to you. We have had awards made with 0 preliminary data, okay? Not a lot, we usually see some, but you don't need it. It's very good to actually write right in there that in order to comply with the FOA, the Funding Opportunity Announcement, you don't need to provide a detailed experimental plan. And that is really as a reminder to the reviewers, because sometimes they forget and they kind of go into this R01 mentality, especially if you start writing it like an R01. and then they'll tell you it should be an R1 at the end of their review and not a DP2. So you want to explain to them that you're not going to provide a detailed experimental plan, but this is what you're going to do. However, at the same time, you really need to convince those reviewers that you've thought about it. You know what you're going to do, and you can explain it well enough to them that they can appreciate that you're going to do a good job. It's going to be robust. It's going to be rigorous. And, they know what you're going to produce at the end of the 5 years. So that's really important. Innovation. You need to convince them that this is innovative and why. Remember, it's called the new Innovator Award. So if it's not innovative, again, they might say this is fabulous science. It needs to be done. It's important. This is the right person to do it, but it's not innovative. So, it won't make it to the next cut. So your qualifications as an investigator. Talk about what you've done in your prior research. Yes, you can include publications, but why is what you've done in the past exceptionally creative or innovative? Why are you the right person to get this award? Okay. You need to explain why is it suitable for the new Innovator program? Why is it high risk, high reward? And we really leave that up to you to define. We want it to be high risk, high reward, but at the same time, we don't want it to be impossible. So you need to explain what is high risk here, and probably how are you going to mitigate that risk? Are you going to have some alternatives? How that this experimental plan is difficult, but maybe you provide some preliminary data. Maybe you just tell them how you're going to do it, but you describe that. Statement of research effort commitment, that's a simple sentence. You commit at least 25% of your research effort toward the project. If you are, say, a clinician scientist and you only have 50% of your total time, or hopefully more, maybe 75% of your total time is research effort, you need to give 25% of that 75%, okay? So it's not of your total time, it's of your research effort. And then finally, bibliography or citations. Remember, it has to fit in 10 pages. So you really just want to include the really important citations. You can abbreviate them, Miller et al., 2021, and then the name of the journal, whatever, as long as they can find the details that they want. But you don't have to put them out. They don't have to take up 9 pages of your 10. Okay, on the next slide, some things that you might want to think about when you're writing this essay, because this really is the meat of your proposal, right? Make sure that the reviewers are going to be able to understand why it's innovative. And remember, we invite all kinds of science. So you might not get a reviewer in the second stage, especially, and Jean will explain that, who knows a lot about your subject area. So you want to make sure that you don't descend immediately into alphabet soup jargon. You don't want to include 4 pages of mathematical formulas, okay? You really want to communicate the innovation and the impact and the significance to someone who's not a specialist in the field. At the same time, of course, you need to make it clear that you understand the field that well, that you are the expert and you know exactly what needs to be done in this field, and that's why it's innovative. So again, you might describe the landscape of the field, current gaps or challenges in that field, and what you're going to do to bridge those gaps or those challenges. You want the context to be clear to a non-specialist. Again, not too much jargon. And we stress that you don't need preliminary data and you don't need a detailed experimental plan. However, you need to make sure they understand you've thought about this, you know what you're doing, and you have anticipated things that might come up, and you know how to deal with them. And you know what the limitations are, perhaps, of your experimental model, and maybe you're going to use more than one model. So things like that are really important. Again, the the research has to be rigorous, it has to be robust. You need to validate what you're doing. If you are using human subjects or animals, you want to provide a reasonable estimate of how many you're going to use. And you might back that up with, a short but power analysis that would show why you're going to use that many. Remember to include sex as a biological variable if that's appropriate. That's an NIH policy that has to be followed. And you might think about age as a biological variable if that applies to what you're doing. On the next slide, budget periods. Okay, so it used to be, and you'll see reference to this maybe in places, that we used to be able to disperse the budget is a 5-year project period. And we're not allowed to do that anymore because of recent policies in HHS and NIH. So now what we do is make the award in 2 multi-year funded segments, okay, as I mentioned before, for 3 years and then again for 2 years. One of the benefits to you, to the awardees for this, is that there now can be no cost extensions beyond the 5-year final project period. And we'll deal with that later if you get the award, 5 years from now. So in the next slide, here's the budget information. You do have to put a budget in, but we really only want minimal information, okay? So here are the details for the first 3-year segments, and the dates are there. It would start September. I don't know if that's the right September. Anyway, it doesn't matter. For the September in which it would start, the total direct costs can only be 900. And we don't care if you spend 300, 300, 300, or 400, 200, whatever, as long as it does not exceed 900,000. And then your institution puts the indirects on top of that. And then the second segment, the last 2 years, it's only 600. Okay, so again, an average of 300,000 per year. But again, we're fine with how you divide that up. So in the next page, next slide. All right, now there's a lot of arrows here, and remember, you're going to get these slides. You can look at them later. But you're going to need, this is how to fill out the budget. Okay, so let's go through this. I don't have a pointer, but start at number 1. It's the appropriate budget type. It's a project. It's not a subaward or consortium. So you click project. Oh, Becky's going to run the arrow. You're so good, Becky. And then for number 2, you put in the start and end dates over there on the right-hand side, those 2 arrows, okay? September 1st of the first year, and then August 31st of the next calendar year, okay? And these dates are in the FOA. So section A of the budget, you need information about the senior or key personnel. You provide an entry for you as the PI, okay, including the appropriate level of salary, but you enter 0 for requested salary and 0 for fringe benefits. This does not mean that you're not going to get salary. It's just the way that these budgets need to be filled out for this effort. And if this gets confusing, I would suggest that you reach out to your budget office, which is likely they've dealt with this before, or you can ask us via the email address. You skip this other personnel section. That does not mean that you can't pay other personnel. You just skip that section. Remember, we're trying to keep this flexible so that you can spend it on whatever the needs are. So on the next slide, in the next section, section C, right, we did A, we skipped B, we're going to C. If you need equipment that's over 500,000, you would fill it in here, and you have to provide a justification for that equipment in the budget justification section. So I don't know, you need a fancy fax machine that your institution doesn't have, and you absolutely need it to do the whatever it is you're going to do. You write about it here, okay? Or you put it in here and write about it in the justification. So the next slide, Okay, F, you go on to F, other direct cost. So you're going to add a line item and provide total direct cost request for the budget period, okay? If you did request equipment in section C, you don't add it again here, okay? So it has to be 900 at the bottom of this, right? In section 6 down the bottom. But if you asked for, I'm going to make this up, $50,000 for that fax machine, well, maybe $100,000 for that special fax machine, then it's got a total 900. You can't total $1 million, okay? So again, the requested direct cost will cover anything that you need in order for you to do the work that you're going to propose. It could be salaries of a postdoc or a technician. It could be salaries plus their fringe benefits, lab supplies, computers, travel, anything that is permitted under NIH policy and at your institution. Okay, so again, 900 for years 1, 2, and 3 to additive, and 600 for years 4 and 5. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, I'm going to hand off to Gene, and he's going to talk us through the review of the DP2s. There you go, Gene.
Hi, Trish. Let me start off by saying that was outstanding. that was very good. So I'm here to talk about the step after you've followed Trish's advice and guidance and put together a strong application, and then you send it to the NIH. We'll be responsible for reviewing your application with us. So next slide, please. Just a kind of an overview of the process here. You get the bright idea within your institution. You consult the RFA and the funding opportunity announcement, and create your application and send it via grants.gov to the NIH, and we receive it at the Division of Receipt and Referral, actually within the Center for Scientific Review. Remember that receipt date is August 19th, so in a number of weeks here. That's a submission deadline. Just a thumbnail sketch of what the review is going to be like. It's a two-stage review process. Stage 1 involves all the applications that we receive. We will recruit male reviewers, that's mail-in reviewers, folks that we're not going to meet as a group, but they're going to evaluate the applications and submit a critique template with their evaluations for all the applications. And from that stage 1, we will derive the finalist selection of applications. These are applications that typically score the highest with the preliminary scores. And I'll talk more about that in just a second here. Finalist applications will move on to stage 2, where they will go to an editorial panel. Editorial, as it may imply, are a group of reviewers, high standing stature within the community, that will rely on the stage 1 critiques, not rely on, but certainly consult the stage 1 critiques as they go over the applications and come up with their evaluations for it. All of the finalist applications will be discussed in a study section meeting, and final scores will be generated from the discussion. From that, the list will go to the advisory council, which is the council of councils, and which implies that it's a council made up with a number of councils from around the NIH. All the different institutes and centers participate in this council of councils. And from that, they will have the selection of awardees, which will be done both by the OD, by the Office of the Director, which Trish represents, and Robbie and the group here, and also other members of the institutes and centers will also be responsible for selecting awardees. And the announcement of the awards will be in September. Next slide, please. Just a little bit, drilling down just a little bit on the stage one of the review. This year is something a little bit new. If you're familiar with last year's, this year we actually have a means of handling the applications that we come in. We're actually going to split it up into two equivalent panels. So when your application comes in, you will be assigned to a panel. These panels are equivalent. They'll have the same approximate spread of topics that represent the NIH's science, and both panels will reside within our review branch, which is the Respiratory, Cardiac, and Circulatory Sciences branch. When you see that your application goes to the Respiratory, Cardiac, and Circulatory Sciences branch, do not be alarmed that your application has nothing to do with heart or lungs or vascular systems. This is just where this DP2 review originates within our group. We will certainly set up the review so that all represented sciences are represented as reviewers. We will do an administrative review, that is a check for the completeness of the application, compliance as well. Mainly what we do is check for the eligibility of your ESI status. Remember, as Trish mentioned, make certain that your ESI status is represented there. Sometimes within your Commons account, not all the information is present, and if not all the information is present, you may not be represented as an ESI. So please make certain that that you update your Commons account with all the information so that your ESI eligibility stands out. Applications will be then, once they're in our study sections, they will be grouped based on areas of science. Trish alluded to that. In your application, in a segment called Agency Routing Identifier, and again, this is listed in the FOA, you are asked to provide 2 areas of science that represent your application. That's important. And so the 9 areas are listed in that funding opportunity announcement. Select the ones that most closely represent your science. We will actually do the same thing with reviewers that we bring in, so that we will have representative science of the reviewers, and this will help us to make the assignments for your application. We will check for any potential conflicts of interest with your applications. In other words, members of the same institution as you would represent. If a reviewer was at the same institution as you, that's an automatic, what we call institutional conflict, where they cannot review your application. We also will try to identify collaborative conflicts of interest. That is, if reviewers see that they know you, that they've collaborated with you, that would put them in conflict of interest. So we want to have an objective review of your application that focuses on the impact, the innovation of your science. From that, the male reviewers will be recruited from the areas of science. We will match them up with your application, and most importantly, well, certainly everything's important here, but one important feature is that we will train or orient or make all the reviewers aware of the key variables or factors that make this review much different than an R01 review. We will go over the same points that Trish went over with you, with the reviewers, to make certain that the expectations for what you're proposing and you're submitting will be looked at in the context of a DP2 New Innovator application. And that's very important. Next slide, please. So the stage 1 male reviewers, For each of the review panel, we will recruit the panel of male reviewers. We will match the reviewers with your science. We will assign 3 reviewers per application, and we will ask them to provide the critique. The critique comes on a template that's a little bit different than templates that one may be used to in terms of an R21 or R01 a review template. Reviewers that review R21s or R01s, which have 5 NIH criteria, core criteria. These have 3 criteria. The 3 criteria are also listed in your funding opportunity announcement. But as we see here, the 3 criteria are the importance and potential impact of the scientific problem. This is important to keep in mind as you're putting together your essay. The novelty and innovativeness of the approach, and the creative potential of the ESI. They will look for strengths and weaknesses related to each of those 3 criteria, scoring it anywhere between 1, which is exceptional, to 9. And they will provide an overall impact paragraph that kind of encapsulates these 3 points into a narrative that describes your application. Next slide, please. So the selection after the male reviews come in to us, and we have the scores associated with them. We think about the selection of the finalist applications that go to stage 2, also called the editorial board review. Really 2 factors go into consideration. Number 1 is the selection based on rank order by mail-in reviewers. This is the overall impact score. We look at the highest scoring applications. We look to get about 20% of all applications submitted and over to stage 2. And after kind of automatically pushing over the highest scoring applications, there are a number of spots that will get us up to 20%. We ask the editorial board reviewers to look at the applications and be able to pull up applications that are that show that they were scored well by the reviewers, and also represent impactful areas, show what they consider to be innovative science, and represent the diversity of thought that occur within the community there. And we encourage everybody to, again, as Trish indicated, to consider the fact that strong innovative science can come from any corner of this country, any area of the institutions that are out there, and by all types, all reviewer, all applicants and investigators, the diversity of the investigators. Next slide, please. So for the stage 2 editorial review, we have an editorial board which is going to represent about 15 or 20 panelists. These are senior members of the scientific community. These are experts with broad and scientific understanding. They will not necessarily represent spot-on expertise related to your application. As Trish pointed out, spot-on expertise is not really a theme that runs through this. Really, it's your job to be able to convey the innovativeness to in the stage 1 reviews to members of the research field, the general topic research field that you're in, without necessarily being people with spot-on expertise. Editorial board may actually be a little bit further out. These are members that are used to looking at broad ranges of science. And when reading the 3 stage 1 reviews and looking at the application themselves, can make a determination as to the merit of this application there. So remember, you're speaking to smart people that not necessarily had hands-on training in your field. So as Trish mentioned, indicate that you know the field without getting too deep into the jargon. Each finalist application is assigned to 3 of these editor reviewers. All finalist applications will be discussed. So it's not like we're like in a normal study section where you may have the top 50% being discussed. In this case, since these applications already made the cut, they're all going to be discussed. Scoring is focused on impact and innovation, and the release of final scores and summary statements will be done for all of the applications. For the discussed applications, one will have the summary statements created by the 3 original stage 1 reviewers, along with the final score and the resume / summary of discussion that occurs during the meeting room with the stage 2 editorial board reviewers. Not discussed applications will receive the original 3 stage 1 critiques, obviously not with the resume or summary discussion because they were not discussed. Next slide, please. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to contact me. I'm the review contact person. You see the email there. As Becky pointed out and Trish pointed out, everyone will get a copy of this presentation, so you'll be able to. I believe that's a link right there that you can get to. Okay, there you go. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jean. All right, next is we're going to go into the Q&A section of the webinar. As a reminder, please type in your questions in the Q&A box, and we will do our best to get to them. We have the questions. We'd like to break them up based on topic area, just to help with the flow a bit. So the first topic area that we will be discussing is on eligibility. So first question. Trish, is it required to have a tenure track faculty position? And do you know if this has ever been awarded to someone with a research position that was not tenure track?
That's a good question. So a tenure track position is not formally required. What you need from your institution is you need to be an independent scientist. So if they feel you are eligible to apply for, say, an R01, then you're eligible to apply for a Dp2. We do have examples of individuals who are not tenure track that did receive new Innovator Awards. So yes.
Great. And Tony, is this awarded to the institution or to the individual?
Excellent question, and I think I will defer to Trish for a follow-up. But this is awarded to the institution, but the individual PI is one of the primary factors in determining which awards are considered to be the most competitive.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Tony. And where it might be a problem, or not a problem, but a challenge for you is if you're still a postdoc at an institution and then you're about to move to become an investigator at, institution number 2, I would suggest in that case that actually the new institution should be the one where you would, assuming you would start there during that time, where you would apply through, because you're not an independent investigator when you're a postdoc at your postdoc institution, right? So you really need to be that, to make it clear that you're independent. So I think that's the way I would handle that.
Okay, great. And Ravi, is a Dp2 more competitive than an R01? So maybe you can also talk about success rates here.
Well, it depends on the institute, but typically the Dp2 is more competitive than the R01. The success rate for new Innovator Awards tends to be about 8 to 10%.
I can color that a little bit from an IC perspective. In general, ESI R01s tend to have a higher award rate than DP2s. But the question really is your project more suitable for a new Innovator Award or for an R01, because they have different requirements and they're framed differently, as Trish discussed during the presentation. So I think that's the primary consideration, because some of the things that you could get supported through the DP2 program, a regular R01 would not be a good mechanism for that.
Yes, excellent points. Thank you, Tony. And actually, Tony, for you, do you lose your ESI status if you receive the DP2?
Yes, you do. It's considered your first substantial award. So if you do get one, congratulations, and that's your ESI grant.
Great. And maybe Ravi, for you, should we read into the relatively low amount of NCI people at HRHR? I believe they're referring to the working group.
So Ravi is muted.
So the
Oh.
relatively low number of NCI people in HRHR?
Yeah, I guess NCI reps on the working group, perhaps.
There's usually one, the normal number is one per institute or center, other than CSR, Center for Scientific Review. Sometimes there are a couple of people representing an institute. That's to help share the load. But I would not read having a single member from NCI as an indication that NCI is not as committed to the Common Fund program as the others.
And I would also not read into it that if your area of science is NCI focused, cancer focused, that there would be a different level of enthusiasm either.
Great. Yes, thank you. Trish, could you elaborate more on high risk, high reward compared to a normal R01 application?
Yeah, that's a good question. You really have to define it well for yourself as you write this, right? Because there may be things in your application that the reviewer doesn't understand are either high risk or maybe low risk. So I would advise you to be very clear about what's high risk here, and very importantly, what's the high reward. So we also want high reward from an R01, but I think one of the best ways to think about it is that if the research proposed is a logical sort of iterative extension of your current or postdoctoral work or your early lab work, and you have all the preliminary data lined up, like you got all your everything ready to go, and you just need some experiments that will then test a hypothesis that's very clear, high feasibility, etc. That seems a little bit more like an R01 to me, and my guess is that the reviewers might say that as well. So I think it's on you as the author of the application to describe why it's high risk, high reward. But that's kind of a way to think about it. You want to really look for a leap forward from where you have been or what you've done in the past to where you want to go. And I think defining that in your application would be very helpful for the reviewers and for you to get a review that would be something you'd be happy with.
Yes, excellent. Tony, can a DP2 and R01 be submitted at the same time with overlapping aims?
So the answer to that question is no, because you can't have two substantially of the same projects under review at the same time. So if you want to use the same idea for either an ESI R01 or a DP2, you have to pick one mechanism and go with it. And I'll provide a little bit of extra answer to this question. So this restriction applies to HHS agencies. You could submit a similar idea either to the NSF or the DoD at the same time. But what you can't do is accept both awards if both grants are fundable. So if that happy circumstance happens, you're going to need to work with both program officers to figure out how to deal with the overlap, or you may only be able to accept one of the awards.
Great, thank you. So Ravi, why is the NIAID DP2 different from the others? And can you submit a regular DP2 and NIAID DP2 at the same time?
The NIAID DP2 is a program that was initiated by NIAID. So they saw a need to support early stage investigators through their own efforts. And theirs is actually more focused on earlier stage than the New Innovator. The New Innovators uses the general definition of early stage investigator, which is any individual who is within 10 years of receipt of their terminal research degree or completion of clinical training and who has not yet received substantial NIH support. But for NIAID, I believe to be eligible, one needs to be in the first year of a faculty position or equivalent, or a postdoc at the time of application. And if you're a postdoc at the time of application, then you must have transitioned to a faculty position or equivalent by the time of award. Another difference, of course, is that NIAID DP2 applications, the topics must be relevant to the mission of NIAID, whereas for the general or the common fund, NIH-wide DP2, any topic within the broad mission of NIH is welcome.
So if I may add something to it, there's an interesting consideration here, as Ravi alluded to, which is you could submit applications to both funding opportunity announcements as long as they're not overlapping, as we just discussed. But if both of them are fundable, you're going to have to pick which one you take, because you can only receive one ESI award, and as soon as you accept one DP2, you become ineligible for the other one.
Thanks, Tony. And maybe to follow up with that, there's another question. If we use the same idea to apply outside the federal government to a private foundation award, can we accept both, or do the same restrictions apply?
It's the same answer that I alluded to a couple of minutes ago. You can apply to a non-government foundation with substantially the same idea, but you cannot have the same research funded from two sources. So you are supposed to disclose overlapping work at the time you provide JITs, should your DP2 be fundable, and then you will have to work with the program officer to appropriately address overlap.
Okay, great. All right, Trish, we've gotten a lot of questions about ESI status. So if your early stage investigator status was extended, are you still eligible even if you've surpassed that 10-year period?
Oh, yes, definitely. I highly encourage folks, if there's a reason that they should need an extension, that they should apply for it. It's not through us, through our office, or through this program. It's a central, NIH central thing. If you Google ESI and extensions, you'll come up with a form that needs to be filled out. There's also an email address you can ask them, and they will give extensions for anything that is relevant. Family issues, having children, caring for an elderly or parent or family member, pandemic, we all got a little bit of that recently, if your lab was shut down for a while. So my information from some of you all is that they are pretty quick and very fair, but you need to have that extension in hand before August when you submit the application. Otherwise it won't be accepted through the system. So if you need that, if you just expired or something, I would do that today. I would email them right away and get that started, because if you don't have that intact by the due date, your application won't be accepted. Does that cover what you asked, Becky?
Yes, 100%. Thank you. All right. Ravi, what about the grant availability for international PhD candidates? So I assume they're asking about if non-US citizens can apply.
Non-US citizens can apply. There's no citizenship requirements for the New Innovator Award. Just have to have legal status, of course, but other than that, nothing more.
Okay, great. let's see. Trish, are postdocs eligible to apply?
Well, if you are eligible from your institution to submit an R01, then in theory, yes, you could be eligible to apply for this. I would be very careful to outline in the application what your status is and why you might be the right person for this. But if you can show that you're an independent researcher and it would be your grant, it would not be your PI's grant, then it could be fine. And I'm thinking, Ravi, are there any exceptions to that? Or
That's correct, but you have to have a independent research position, faculty or equivalent, I think, by September 1st of 2023 in this case.
right, right. So of once the award starts, you would need to have that.
Yep.
So you can apply coming out of your postdoc, but not if you intend to stay as a
Correct.
postdoc. You can't receive the award. I guess that's the best way to say it.
Yep.
And when we get to review, we steer reviewers away from discussing status like that. We strictly make them focus on the ideas of the application, the impact of the goals, and the innovativeness of the design and of the PI. So that is not a review criteria once it gets to us. When it comes to us, we assume that it made the hurdles and the application will be reviewed based on the merit of the ideas and the execution.
Right. And Trish, we're asking for just a confirmation. So the early stage investigator status needs to be active only at the time of application and not the award start date?
No, so yes and no. Okay, so the ESI status has to be there when you apply for sure. However, by the time the award is made, your 10-year clock may have expired. But if you have received a substantial NIH award, and there's a list of them on that website, then you cannot accept the DP2. So I guess the answer is sort of, right? So you have to have both of those criteria in place when you apply, no major funding and before the 10 years. But as you realize, it takes a good, 9 months or so, maybe, I guess longer. Yeah, it takes almost a year to get to the point where the awards are made. So if the 10-year clock is expired, that's okay. But you cannot have accepted another funding source that would break your ESI status. Clear as mud?
Yeah, and here's to add more to that. So if the applicant's R01 got reviewed under ESI status, then the applicant got awarded the DP2, how would that situation be addressed regarding the R01 if the applicant accepted the DP2 first?
I can take that on behalf of the ICs.
Thank you, Tony.
Different institutes usually have tiered pay lines for their R01s from established investigators and R01s from early stage investigators. So depending on how your R01 scored, if it scored really well, for instance, if you got 5th percentile, and you accepted the DP2, so now you're no longer an ESI, you're now an established investigator by the definition of funding, congratulations, you can still have the R01 funded because it fits into the established investigator pay line. If your R01 scored in that gray area where you need your ESI status in order for it to be fundable, then you're going to have a choice because, as Trish said, you can't have substantial funding and accept the DP2. And if you accept the DP2, you're no longer an ESI. So then you will have to choose which project is more appropriate and will provide you with a better launching platform for your program.
Great, thank you for that, Tony. Let's see, Ravi, can you submit an idea more than once? If it doesn't do well once, can you submit it as a new application another year?
Yes, it's quite common for people to submit multiple times, and often they do submit pretty much the same idea, refined, of course, from one year to the next. It's important to note, however, that all applications are considered new. There is no A1 application. So if you do submit another application, please be sure that you don't mention any previous submission or previous review, because if you do, then that is grounds for administrative withdrawal. So be careful.
All right, thanks. Let's see. Trish, for you, are applicants encouraged to reach out to program officers about their application to assess fit for the funding opportunity announcement prior to submission?
Absolutely. Yes, we encourage it. We expect it. You can use the email address at the bottom there, New Innovator Awards at mail.nih.gov, and I will answer it. You will be meeting and talking to me, so you might hear a lot of what you heard today in that phone call, but happy to talk about ideas. I cannot tell you whether the science is good or bad or how I would change the science. That's really up to you, but I can talk to you about the review process and innovation and what's required. So, but yes, please do reach out, and that goes for anything you're thinking about at NIH. It shouldn't just be for the DP2. When you are applying for R1s or R21s, perhaps, whatever, always reach out to program. That's our job. We like to help, so please.
All right. And Tony, are KO1 awardees eligible? And if so, would a DP2 award require relinquishing the K award?
I don't see Tony's box there.
Oh, uh-oh. He disappeared. Okay. Robbie, do you want to answer that?
Tony had to leave early. So
Oh.
he gives his apologies.
Okay.
And I give my apologies. What's the question?
It's just asking about if you hold a K award, do you need to relinquish that to get the DP2?
Yeah, because in principle, the K award can be subsumed under the DP2, but that can be a difficult thing to do. Typically, the awardees would give up the K award to become a new innovator awardee.
All right. And there's someone asking, when will award notifications be made? So Trish?
I think they will be usually September of the following year, right after you applied. So you're applying in August 2022. So sometime in early September 2023, you might get, if you get a 10 for a score, you might feel comfortable about that before that date. But yeah, that's when the formal notification would come out. Yes.
All right. And then for you, Trish and Jean, I think can pitch in too. Can you define innovative from the reviewer's perspective? This can vary quite a bit.
Oh yeah, that's a hard one. It's one of those things that you know it when you see it, right? Or yeah, innovate. What I like to tell folks when I meet with them is think about the intro biology textbook in your area of science. How are you going to really change something in that textbook? How are you going to shift the paradigms in your field and really make a big difference? The old things about moving the needle or whatever. So think about it that way, but it's really important to explain it to the reviewers, because you can think, oh, it's obvious that would be innovative. Well, it might not be as obvious as you think. So make sure you tell them why you think it's innovative. But I don't think I can define it precisely in an abstract way like that. Sorry.
And I think that what we see also is that sometimes people define innovative, or they think numbers of reviewers will look at an application and think if the approach is innovative, if there's new technology being developed, new strategies to do things, that could be one level of innovation. The other level of innovation could be using something that's been around for 100 years and using it in a completely innovative way, completely different way, and identifying new ways of looking at it or dealing with it. So there could be conceptual innovation and there could be technical innovation as well. So really creating something, a new way of doing or looking at something could be considered innovative.
Yeah, I think that's really important, Jean. And I think that there's not an emphasis for one over the other, of a tool development or database development versus using something, an approach that's been around a long time to do something really different. But make sure you define it for the reviewers.
That's important. You know, repurposing a drug that was used for one thing, and now it's being used for something completely different based on a characteristic that they've seen. That's highly innovative of using something that's very old, but spell it out and let everybody know that as well.
Mhm.
All right. Let's see. Are areas with more funding opportunities less likely to be selected, or does this not have an impact on the selection? I guess, Trish?
I don't exactly understand. Areas with more funding opportunities? You mean other funding opportunities out there? I don't.
They provide examples like foundations for specific cancers,
Oh,
DoD.
I see. Okay, thanks. No, I really don't think so. I mean, I have never run into something where the reviewer says this should be funded by American Heart Association, not NIH, for example, right? So I don't think that that would be a consideration of review or of program or for funding decisions.
Okay, great. We have loads and loads of questions, but looking at the time, maybe we should move on to our next topic area, which is on application and submission. Let's see. So I guess, Trish, can the font size for citations at the end of the essay be a little smaller than the rest of the text?
Yes, I think I mentioned that earlier. Yes, it can be a little smaller. Don't make it impossible to read. The last thing you want is an irate reviewer. So yeah, they could blow it up on their computer screen or get out a magnifying glass, but don't make it illegible, but you can make it a little smaller. Yes.
All right, and without letters of support, do we just mention the collaborator in the essay? Yeah, Ravi, maybe?
Yes, that's you can mention the collaborator in the essay, his or her name, institution, and how he or she would be contributing to the project. You should also list your collaborators in the assignment form so that Gene and his team will know who the collaborators are, because otherwise it's hard to extract that information, and making sure that there's no conflict of interest among the reviewers when they review the applications.
Okay.
Going back to the font size and things like that, just remember that there are some standard category or standard directions about font of regular text there. I mean, one of the things that we want one of the things that is stressed is equity and fairness for everybody. And when people are squeezing the regular text, not the specific text that was just mentioned before, but the regular text, making it smaller in between lines and larger margins, could have the potential to squeeze in more information than so I would adhere to that too. I know that I've seen applications get administratively withdrawn for trying to squeeze way more information in than what is that shouldn't be counter to what you said, Trish. Is that
No,
correct?
I completely agree, Gene.
Yeah.
There are prescribed fonts, and I can't remember the names and sizes. So don't try to cheat that, because if you do, you could get returned without review, and then you've lost a year if you want to try to submit this again. So it's really not worth it. And that's a challenge to you to communicate what you need to communicate in the prescribed amount of space. Everybody has the same amount of space. So yeah.
All right. And for Jean, the areas of science codes, does it matter the order for reviewer assignment? Thinking in the case of a really interdisciplinary proposal.
It should not matter. It does not matter, the area. What most people do is what we've seen is probably what they consider to be the primary and secondary, but it both are taken into consideration when we look at it and make assignments.
All right. And for Trish, I understand letters of support are not required. Could you describe the facilities section of the application?
It's short, right? And it should not include a letter of support there. It should include information about the facilities at your institution. So, for example, if you're going to be doing work that you need to make knockout mice, you want to describe the mouse facilities at your site. You might describe a core for which you're going to make those mice if you're not doing them yourself. There might be an antibody production facility that could help you with some of the science that you're proposing. So anything like that would make sense. You don't need to state that there's, a parking garage and you only have to walk 50 yards from your car to the lab or anything like that, but just things that would make it clear to the reviewers that you have everything you need there. And, if there's a collaborator, for example, that's going to make that antibody for you, instead it's an exotic llama antibody or something, you might state what they have at their site. So, Dr. Miller at University of Becky has this wonderful llama production farm, and, you're gonna use that. But it's short, so you cannot wax poetic. I would advise you not to use sort of boilerplate facilities, things that you might get from your grants office, because those are often multiple pages long. And frankly, not all of those things will be pertinent to the science that you're proposing to your application. So make sure that it makes sense. You don't want to waste that space. And make sure that it's relevant.
And there is a one-page limit.
Yes, it's a one-page limit. And I think for an R01, it's probably 3 pages, maybe. I'm not sure. So yeah, 1 page. Same font sizes too.
And feeding off that, is there a location in the application where we indicate we're an independent investigator? And do we discuss the details of the lab environment?
So I don't know who that's for, but I'll just start talking.
Okay.
So you have a bio sketch, and I would think that would be an obvious place where you would state your appointment. You're an assistant professor at university of whatever, or an instructor at university of whatever you are. But you have a personal statement there that you can elaborate if you need to. So I would say it would belong there. Yeah, you can also mention it in your research essay. There's a portion there that you talk about yourself and your track record, your creativity, and so on and so forth. So it might be there. You don't duplicate, right? Because you have a limited amount of space. So don't put the same stuff in both places, but I think it's up to you to decide where it fits best.
Okay, great. And Ravi, does the length of time employed by the institution, is it a consideration for the reviewers? I am a recent new hire.
No, it does not. As long as you're still an ESI, early stage investigator, that's fine. Maybe Jean would like to elaborate.
We take everything back to looking at the review criteria. Those 3 review criteria, does it fit in there? So no, there's no place for that. Again, we focus on the merit of the application, the innovativeness of the approach, and the innovativeness of the ESI, and the impact of the goals of the project.
Great.
And when people steer away, we steer them back. Or when they wander away, we steer them back.
All right. Trish, in looking at past projects which have been funded by the DP2 mechanism, I saw very few, if any, in the areas of behavioral research. Any advice pertaining to what a behavioral researcher can do to be more competitive?
Yeah, we've heard that many times, and we have done analysis of this, and we can say firmly that the areas of science that are represented in the applicant pool match those in the awardee pool, right? So, and I don't know the exact numbers, but, even if I did, I wouldn't really be able to tell you, but just pretend that only 2% of the applications we get are from behavioral social science, in that classification. We have evidence that it's actually the same proportion in the award pool. So what can I give you as advice? I would say the same advice to any sort of scientist. Make sure that you read the review criteria and you work hard at making sure that you can convey why your application is innovative, why it's going to have a large impact. And I don't think I would worry that the area of science is going to limit you in any way.
Okay, great. Ravi, is there a template or sample of the research strategy essay available?
Becky, is there a template or an example of a research strategy
Yes.
available?
Go to the website. Look at all my hard
Yes.
work.
Yes, Becky's done a terrific job.
Yes, it's on our website. Go to the application and award guide. There are examples there that you can look at. Just remember they're older, so they may not conform to current requirements in the funding opportunity announcement.
I would also really encourage people to read through the FAQs, frequently asked questions, because you will learn so much if you just spend 30 minutes and read through that, because that's why they're called frequently asked, that they might be questions that you are thinking about too.
Yes, exactly. Great plug. Yes. Um, and I guess, Trish, since you're here, should the essay explicitly include sentences to remind that the application is a DP2?
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. As we stated earlier, remind them that you don't need a lot of preliminary data, that this is a DP2 and you're following the directions. Yes, please do that. Reviewers are human, and reviewers are used to reviewing R01 type awards, and they are instructed and coached and reminded, but they're human. So sometimes I like to say there's this little switch in the hindbrain that they just all of a sudden say, oh, this looks like an R01, and they start reviewing it like an R01. So make it clear to them that it is not an R01. I think that's an important grantsmanship tool you can use.
Okay, great. Ravi, what if I change institutions after the first 3 years of the DP2? Am I allowed to switch institutions for the second phase?
Yes, you can even change within the first phase. You would submit what's called a Type 7 application, but it's important to note that the award actually goes to the institution, not to the PI. So the institution has to be willing to relinquish the award, and the new institution, of course, has to be willing to accept it, and there has to be a programmatic review. So the program officer has to review the resources available, the environment at the new institution, and approve the transfer, that the new situation would be adequate to pursue the research that's been proposed. And we really don't. So if there have been, although there are a few hurdles to overcome, there are many examples of people changing institutions. It's not that uncommon to do. And there's also the understanding that the PI cannot be changed on a new Innovator Award. So unless they're really very extenuating circumstances, for example, if the award has to be ramped down pretty quickly for various reasons, then a change of PI is allowed. But other than that, the PI cannot be changed on a new Innovator Award. So bottom line is yes. The PI can change institutions and take the award with him or her.
Great, thank you. All right, in the interest of time, wow, let's go on to some budget questions. And let's see, let's see, where is okay. Can one ask for 100% salary theoretically? Trish.
Well, I suppose you can ask, but then you're tying your hands because then if you have 100% of your effort on this award, you can't apply for anything else. You can't do anything else at your institution. You can't teach a class. You can't sit on a committee. So you don't want to do that. As we request 25% effort, but I would work with your mentors and your business advisors at your institution to discuss what level of salary support you want to put on the award. Am I wrong about that, Ravi, or are they limited to 25% salary recovery with 25% effort?
They're not limited to 25% salary recovery. And the unusual feature for the new Innovator Awards and the Pioneers is that this is research effort. So the effort towards teaching, clinical, and administrative duties are not considered. So
yes, that's true. I'm sorry, you're right.
But
All
like
right.
you said, may not want it. If that's what you think you need to do, then certainly you have the freedom to get all your salary support through the new Innovator Award. But it doesn't provide as much flexibility to spend that on the funds available on other things that you might need to pursue the research.
Great. And Ravi, since you're here, are sub-awards allowed?
Sub-awards are allowed, and that will be figured out when the parent award, when the new Innovator Award is to be made. The funds can be dispersed to other institutions, to investigators at other institutions through the new Innovator Award, but those details can be worked out later.
Great. And for Trish, if you don't request equipment in the application, can you still purchase equipment later if you decide that you need it?
Oh, yes, definitely. We want to maintain, the most flexibility we can for you if you get this award. The one limit is, and it's a policy issue, is that if a piece of equipment is over, I think it's $5,000, Robbie will correct me, the indirect cost rates are a little different. So that would be something you'd need to work out with your budget folks and the grants management people at NIH. But yes, you don't have to budget it all in advance. You can work it out later. Is that
All
correct, Ravi?
That is correct. Like,
That is
Okay, good.
correct. Sorry. Yes, that is
Sorry,
correct.
Becky, I wasn't discounting your knowledge.
oh no.
I'm still here. I'm still here. Okay.
And maybe Trish, if you could just remind people, like, is there a budget justification needed?
Yeah, you want to explain what, but remember, we don't ask for a lot of details. So if you're gonna buy that piece of equipment, you want to justify that. But I don't know if there's a page limit. It's probably very short if there is, but you shouldn't need a lot of room for the budget justification.
Okay.
The things you need to justify are the equipment and consortia.
Yes, yes. Okay,
All right.
thanks.
In the interest of time, let's scoot on to talk more about the review. And Jean, there are a lot of questions asking about when people will be notified if, or whether they'll be notified if they've made it through the different stages.
Yes, typically what we do is after the meeting is done, I'm sorry, after the finalists are selected, we do notify folks that they're Emo. Is Emo here? We notified the folks that are moving forward and thus the folks that are not.
That's correct, Gene.
Yeah.
So the discussion group, right?
Correct. The
Right.
finalists are notified, and those that didn't make it to the finalists are also notified. It's important to say that summary statements all come out at the same time. after the meeting is over. So if your application will not go on to be one of the finalists, your summary statement will come out to you only after the final meeting is done. So a few months down the road is when folks that have not discussed applications will receive their summary statements.
And an important note is that we can't talk to you about your application or the review until after you receive your summary statement. So when you email me and say, you know, I got a 25, I don't know what it means, can you help me? I will have to say, after you get your summary statements, take some time to digest it and then we'll talk. But we can't talk about anything until you get that document.
All right, and we're still getting questions about overlap here, but maybe Jean, let's reiterate. Is it okay to have a DP2 and an R01 in review at the same time? And also, how much overlap can you have with them?
Oh boy, I'm not sure if I'm the person to ask that, simply because we're focusing on the DP2. I think what was said before was that 2 applications with substantially the same topics, you won't be able to get awarded for both. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
Something
it's
helping
it's NIH policy that you can't have 2 applications with overlapping scientific aims under review at the same time. So you will need to pick which one you want to submit, and then once you receive the summary statement of that first review, you are welcome to submit to another funding opportunity, that same idea, but they can't be under review at the same time, and that's NIH policy, so it's for any mechanism. All right, let's see. Wow, we just have a bazillion questions still.
Well, I can stay past 4:30.
You can say that you're going to be here all night. Um,
I can't
You should
stay
do
all
the
night.
list.
all right. Are people who reapply given different considerations than first-time applicants?
Nope, it's
Absolutely
all the
not.
same. Yep. Brand
As
new
Rob said
application.
before, they're all new applications. They're all considered new, and they are all treated as new.
All right, and for Jean, I think there was maybe some confusion about what you're talking about with conflict of interest. So this person asks, I have a conflict of interest with the institute director of the institute I would like to submit the DP2 through, and they work together. Is this a problem for the DP2? So I
No,
think we were, yeah.
with how it affects us in review, conflict of interest is between the applicant and the reviewer. We want to have an objective opinion on each of the applications. Therefore, the person that's reviewing an application should see it only in terms of merit of the strength of the application. So that's where we go for conflict of interest. I think what you're saying is someone down the road that may look at the director of an institute. If they're not sitting on our panel, there's not going to be a conflict of interest.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. Do DP2 applicants need to complete the PHS assignment form to recommend a specific NIH institute? Is that Jean?
No, I think that this all goes to the Common Fund. This all goes to the Office of Director. I think that there's just the DP2 study sections that are going to be reviewing it. So it's not like it's going to be going to different places. So no, I think that there's very little that's needed with the assignment request form.
Only the collaborators should
Only
do
the
Okay.
copy.
And Jean, do the 3 criteria have equal weighting, or do some aspects, such as the applicant's track record, play a big role?
We asked everybody to take a look at it. We asked that no special formula be made when they're looking at each of the 3 criteria. They ask, sometimes we get some reviewers that are just starting out in other disciplines. Should we take an average of all of the criterion scores? The answer is no. The answer is you're looking at the criteria and you're making a judgment at the end of the impact of the application. So sometimes you're weighing things differently for different applications as they strike you. You look at it and you think, okay, the significance of the goals of this application seem, unusually large. That may tend to weigh heavier in the minds of a reviewer. The innovativeness of one may take charge. So it's up to the reviewer to be able to look at an application and to understand it in totality and come up with an overall impact score. So it's not a formula that we ask them to use in coming up with the final score. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, okay. Yes, absolutely. Trish, so what if you think your application only best fits into one scientific area?
Well, I think you have to think more broadly, and we require 2 codes there. So I think I would think more broadly, and it has to fit in. It has to have 2, right? Right, Jean?
Absolutely. And I would say also, if you look at those codes there, some of them deal with general concepts and topics like behavioral and social sciences. Others deal with technology like high throughput and bioinformatics. So sometimes folks that are dealing with one conceptual field pair it up with a technology field. And so there are those codes can fulfill different descriptive needs of your application there, but generally it shouldn't be difficult to come up with 2 codes there.
Great. And how strongly does an applicant's previous funding record play in the selection and review process, Jean?
We look at those 3 core criteria, and so we look at the innovativeness or the impact of the idea, the innovativeness of the approach, the innovativeness of the ESI. Track record, it helps to describe the applicant themselves, but really what you write down in this application to paint the picture of who you are and what you intend on doing is good. That shouldn't play. Word it as best you can, but we ask them to look at the application and the plans on what you the goals of your application and your handle on how you're going to be successful in accomplishing your goals.
All right. And Jean, will we receive any comments from reviewers no matter if the proposal gets reward or not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The only difference between the 2 is for the ones that are discussed, you will see a summary of the discussion that takes place during the discussion meeting, and an overall impact score based on the discussion. If they were not discussed, you will receive the summary statement that includes the criteria. The critiques of the 3 male reviewers.
All right. And Ravi, when in the review process can ICs pick up something not funded by this group, I guess, the Common Fund?
Yeah, so this occurs after the review, after the summary statements are in, and after this goes to the Council of Councils that Jean mentioned. The funding development, the funding plan that's developed is rather complicated, involves the Common Fund and the HR working group. We have a project team within that group that helps to go through all the applications, scored applications, and assign, and look at the programmatic priorities that we have and to help to prioritize applications for the Common Fund. In addition, the individual institutes at NIH have the opportunity to support applications of their choice, and that exercise tends to occur later than the Common Fund funding plan development exercise. Often the institutes need to wait till closer till the end of the fiscal year. The fiscal year ends September 30th. So they need to wait a little bit longer to see how much funds they have left available with which they could support new Innovator Awards. So it tends to occur later.
Okay, great.
And I'm going to add that occurs within NIH, and you should not reach out to program staff to try to facilitate that. That's our job, and we've got it covered. So thank you.
Yeah, we have a systematic process in place to make sure that all the required documents are available to all the institutes.
Great. And Trish, for human subjects research, do you need to submit a separate clinical trials information section with the application?
Yeah, this is spelled out in the FOA. So if you are thinking about a clinical trial as part of your application, you need to figure out which institute or center. So say if you're doing something in cancer, you would reach out and look at the requirements from NCI and what's needed for clinical trials at NCI. So you need to follow an IC specific directions on that. I would also emphasize, make sure you're including sex as a biological variable, and if necessary, age as a biological variable. Those could affect your review directly.
Great. And here's another question for you, Trish. Considering the level of innovation risk is supposed to be higher than for the R35 ESI MIRA, I guess I'll ask a question, is the level of innovation and risk higher than for the R35 ESI MIRA? Because the R35 is supposed to be high risk, high innovation, but I have gotten comments in the past that the proposal is too innovative. How do we balance innovation and risk for the DP2?
You know, I think again, that's just in how you explain it and how you articulate that, yes, you know, this part is risky and this is the approach you're going to take. That's a rigorous one of how you're going to mediate that risk. I don't know that anybody compares directly between a DP2 and an R35. Those are probably individual opinions that I don't know. I don't know that I would, you know, go to the bank on that, but I think it really just depends on how you write it and how you explain it, and really how you convince the reviewers, because that's your job as the writer. I don't know, is there something that I missed there?
No,
We're all getting tired.
I think you nailed
I
it.
think the R35, yeah, it's more a research program award. It's not a project award. And it's really not intended to support risky research, but rather individual's program of research, which can involve multiple projects.
All right.
And if you apply to both, don't have overlapping science in them. We get many people that apply to both. So just make sure the science doesn't overlap directly, not the same experiments.
Yep, great. A lot of these are very repetitive. Let's see. So, for Trish, can the project goals build on each other more than the typical R01 aims would, or would that be unacceptably high risk?
Well, that's a risk that you have to decide if that's worth taking. If you have, let's say, 3 goals, not aims, but goals, and one, if the first one crashes and burns, the other 2 are done. I would think that reviewers might have a problem with that. So I would, again, discuss how you would mediate the risk and, you know, explain it very clearly. So, you know, maybe imagine you're doing some sort of a screen in zebrafish for neurodevelopmental defects or something like that. You're going to get something out of that screen. It is a screen, so you don't know what you're going to get, but you might discuss all the different types of or phenotypes you might look for, and prioritize them appropriately. And maybe you won't get the exact one you're looking for, but you're gonna get a lot out of it. And how are you gonna deal with the fact if you don't get exactly what you're looking for? You need to explain it, I guess. And the reviewers, they're human, and some might be fine with it, and some will say, this is crazy, you can't do this, it's going to crash and burn. So I would be careful to explain it well.
Okay, great. And Ravi, I just realized by some of these questions it makes sense to me. People are getting confused with the various DP2 initiatives that are out there. So people asking about CATS and NIAID. So Ravi, could you please maybe expound on the use of the DP2 and the different initiatives that go with them?
Well, the original, the OG, no, the original DP2 is a New Innovator Award that's been supported through the Common Fund since 2007. It has been a rather successful program, and other institutes have tried to emulate it. I guess it's a form of flattery that we've done pretty well through this program, but it has caused some confusion, definitely. NIAID has a DP2 that they also call the New Innovator Award, but for NIAID. There are other institutes also that are using the DP2, for example, using funds through the HEAL initiative to support DP2s. But the best way this really can be difficult for people on the outside to distinguish among these various DP2 programs. It can be hard within NIH to distinguish among the various DP2 programs, but take a close look at the FOAs, and they will give a clear indication of the eligibility requirements and the intention of the various DP2s. That's probably the best way to go about it.
Yes, thank you. All right, Trish, to what extent can one propose something that is not in his or her own specialty? And if this is part of the innovation, do you need to show that you will have some collaborators who specialize in this?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think we absolutely encourage an innovative jump, perhaps outside your comfort zone or outside your box, right? But you're right, there is a feasibility component there. So if you're going to be doing something you've never published on, you have no track record in, you might mention that the individual down the hall, they have that expertise and you will be consulting with them or whatever, or someone that you were a postdoc with and is now at a different university. Maybe you're going to be collaborating or consulting with them. I think anything you can do to establish feasibility is probably a good idea without filling it with preliminary data, because that's sort of not in the right spirit of the award, of course. But reviewers will look for things that are feasible. And if you say you're going to do something you've never done before, you not only should have a clear plan, but it might be good to have collaborators, or, sometimes there are core facilities at universities that can help out with a lot of these things as well. So you use whatever you need to get the work done. And that's part of the innovation, right? Is bringing together new technologies, interdisciplinary maybe, and bringing them together so that you can answer a question, a biological question, in a new way. So I think that could work really well if it's explained well.
Great, thank you. Now we're going back to, we have some budget questions. So there were some asking for some clarifications on whether or not you need justification for non-equipment and non-consortia costs like salaries, consumables. So no, she's shaking her head no.
I don't think so, right? Let me make sure Ravi agrees, but I think you don't need that.
That's correct.
So if you're not doing consortial costs or large equipment purchase, you don't need a budget justification, right?
Correct.
You could put it in there and say, I don't need this, I'm not doing those things,
That
or
is
you can
true.
just not put it in.
Right.
All right. And are there cutoffs on how much of the budget can go towards equipment and software?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think there is.
We want to be flexible, but you need to everything you need, right? You don't want to spend it all on one thing and not have anything left to do other parts of your proposed research.
All right, and for Jean, how is scoring of the investigator different for this award compared to an R01?
I think that in this one, it's the innovativeness, I think, of the ESI is the term there. So how is it different? I think that what they're looking for is does the person have the expertise to be able to do this? Does the person have the training to do this? Does the person explain themselves to be able to do this? We're not looking, the reviewers are not looking at track records for this. They're mainly looking at evidence that they can accomplish this. So whereas in R01, sometimes folks may look at track records of success, track records of publications, they're asked to be able to see what they're saying and evidence. In other words, your ability to convince them through the information that you provide that you can get it done.
Great, thank you. And Ravi, are institutional letters of support needed, for instance, from the department chair?
Nope, they're not needed. They're not allowed.
All right. And Trish, does receiving an NSF Career Award make a person ineligible for the DP2?
Nope, it's not an NIH grant, so no.
All right. And Ravi, if you had a previous KO1 award that ended before the new Innovator Award being granted, does that create a conflict?
No, it does not. The K award is one of those that does not remove ESI status.
All right. And I guess along this similar vein, would ROO funding interfere with eligibility for the DP2, or would there be an issue with the percent of effort if both were active at the same time? Ravi?
One can be an ROO recipient at the time and also have a DP2. So the percent research effort for the DP2 is 25%. And usually people can accommodate that and another award.
All right, great. And people are also asking about KO8 awards and if it can be concurrent with the DP2.
Yeah, so similar question has been asked before. K awards in principle, or they can be subsumed in effort, because the K award, the effort required for a K award is usually quite substantial, 75% or so. In principle, they can be subsumed, but in practice, what happens is that the person tends to give up the K award in favor of the DP2.
All right.
And then the K award can be subsumed only under certain circumstances, like in the last year or two of the award. So it is restrictive in that way as well.
All right. Trish, for the research strategy essay, is this meant to be a narrative? For instance, I know there's no specific aims page, but should we not outline aims, tasks, and plans associated with each aim or task in the essay? Are figures allowed or encouraged? And since we don't include letters of support, should we include sufficient information on the background of our collaborators in the essay to demonstrate how they would contribute?
A lot of questions in one, and
Yeah.
I'll probably leave something out. Yes, discuss your collaborators in the research essay and how they'd contribute to the research that you're going to do. I'm sorry, Becky, what else was there?
Yeah,
I got the
there's a lot
last
packed in
one
there.
first.
Are figures allowed
Oh
or
yes,
encouraged?
figures. My goodness, figures are fabulous. We love figures if they're they gotta look good. So you might include models, you might include data, whatever you want to include that makes your case. Absolutely. I'm a big proponent of figures, if they make sense. Don't put in something that's so small you can't see it, and then write a tiny little figure legend that you can't read. I mean, that's just wasting your time. But if it helps your case, put it in there.
Okay, and then the other question was, should they outline aims and tasks and plans in these?
Right. So I would stay away from the use of the term aim, only because when an R01 is written and reviewed, you standardly it's aim 1, aim 2, aim 3. And if you write this like an R01, again, that hindbrain switch goes off with the reviewer's brain, and they're going to think it looks like an R01, it should be an R01. The review comes back, this is great, it should be an R01. So I would stay away from using that word. However, you might have goals, you might have initiatives, tasks, I guess, although that I don't know about that. But the clear thing you need is a plan, a robust plan that shows you've really thought it out, you know what you're doing, you know what is going to be done, and you're conveying that clearly. So you don't need to say experiment 1 is this, experiment 2 is this. It could be a little bit more abstract than that, but still they need to understand what you're going to do with the award if you get it.
All right. And another one for you, Trish. Who do I contact to discuss my scientific inquiries?
You can contact me. You can contact me at the email below or my own email if you find it, whichever, it doesn't matter. It's in the FOA, so you can contact me. I meet with you guys all the time.
Yes. And I know Jean has to leave here soon. I think we're getting close to the end here. There's a question about whether or not the pandemic is a reason for ESI extension. We answered that before. Yes, contact OER about getting that extension. All right, Trish, if we submit evidence that we are eligible to submit an R proposal as a postdoc, would that be enough? Can we provide the letter that we will have a faculty position by September 2023 or later on?
Well, there's no letter, right? And you can't provide anything later. So the information needs to be in the application. So if you do not have a faculty position lined up as of August, when the due date, I would say you're probably not ready to apply for this yet. You might instead look at the Early Innovator, the
Early
Early
Independence.
Independence Award might be a little bit more relevant to you. I don't know. It depends. No, if they're in a postdoc, never mind. But if you don't have an independent faculty position lined up for when you accept the award, I think it might be too early for you to think about this.
Right. So as stated in the FOA, you need to have to be in an independent position by September 1st of 2023 for this solicitation. And you don't need a letter from the institution. The act that the institution is submitting the application is an implicit indication that the institution will provide an independent faculty position, independent position for you in case of award. So there's no separate letter that's necessary from the institution.
Great. And kind of along those lines, maybe Ravi, any general advice for advocating for yourself in the application since there isn't a letter of support component?
Yeah, well, just try to be objective about your accomplishments, and there is a danger in overselling. That's what I've seen in the past sometimes about how remarkable you've been. But try to be objective in your measurements of how you think you've been innovative in the past. I think that's the best way to sell yourself and to sell the science. Try to be objective about what sort of impact you really think your research might have, because the reviewers can see through stuff pretty easily.
Okay, great. And there's a really specific question. So Trish, In the course of the award, a startup entity is created to commercialize the innovation. So can a sub-award or contract be made with that startup entity?
I don't know. Robbie. I think so, but I think you would need to work with your program officer to make sure that's okay.
Yep.
I mean, you still need to keep your position. If you leave and go to that startup entity, then you would have to give up the award.
And that was our next question was, can the award be transferred to the startup entity?
It depends on what the startup entity is, but usually if it's a small business, I think not.
Yeah, that would be difficult to do. The program officer for the award would have to approve such a move, and he or she would need to be convinced that the new startup would allow you to conduct independent research there.
Yes.
And comply with all the federal
Yep.
Yes.
data sharing and yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Maybe just see how this goes. Trish, any thoughts on structuring the new innovator proposal to relate to another broad NIH initiative, such as the HEAL initiative?
Ah, well, I mean, HEAL, helping end addiction long term, is really important set aside of funds that is all about pain and opioid addiction. So if your area of research is in that area, absolutely write your DP2 on it. You know, as we've discussed, we often reach out after applications are reviewed and scored, and sometimes other ICs might want to invest in a DP2 that might be in the area of interest. We all talk to each other at NIH, and you know, I work with HEAL. I knew what the acronym meant, right? So I work with HEAL investigators all the time. So, you know, we talk to each other, and it could well be that there is a fit there. However, I at this point, we don't have any plans to like have a DP2 initiative under HEAL or something like that, if that's where you're going.
Okay. Great, thank you. Well, I think those are the main ones. Some of the others are a bit specific to your situation. So for those questions, I would again point you to our email address, newinnov@mail.nih.gov. Please email us. We can talk about those further. I think though that we will wrap up here. I just want to thank our panelists for answering all those questions and staying longer. We really appreciate your insights and expertise. And thank you to the attendees. We appreciate your attention as well. And as a reminder, there will be a recording of the webinar and the slides posted on our website at commonfund.nih.gov/newinnovator. Please allow a week or two for us to get them up there because we have to make them accessible and compliant with federal policy. So, but once we get that done, we will post them. And once again, if you have additional questions, email us and we will be happy to reach out or and get those answered. So with that, thank you.
Thank you for everybody for all your help making this happen, Becky especially, and Ravi and Tony and Jean, and we look forward to your applications. We're looking forward to a whole new cohort again this year. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thanks. All right.